Steve Prescott, hands up! For Steve Prescott, hands up! For Steve Prescott.
Right, so if you look at the table at the moment, it's fair to say we've got two teams kind of running away with it. Saints and Warrington. Obviously, the Saints had a setback against Catalans, but funnily enough, where Warrington had picked up their only defeat in France, but they come face to face this Friday. Is it a two-horse race? Is this going to be the grand final, do you think, come October?
As it stands, yes. I think these two teams are miles ahead of any other competition as it stands. I can definitely see these two being the grand final teams if they don't play each other in the semis, that is. I think they've both recruited very well in the off-season. They've both built up superb sides and are playing great brands of rugby, and that's what's really, put them above the rest. There's no other team with that calibre of players, I don't think, and that squad depth that have managed to, as well, stay injury-free. I think that's one thing we need to mention. As Warrington and Saints have, I think Blake Austin for Warrington is, in my opinion, the best player in Super League. I think he could win the Man of Steel at the end of this year without a doubt. I think he's the favourite at the minute, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I think he's definitely up there. But I think Justin Holbrook's managed to find a really good combination in Lomax and Fage. I think those two are, obviously not many people predicted at the start of the season. Everyone thought it'd be Lomax and Richardson again, but I think Fage has really stepped up and been superb. I think he's up there with one of the top players this year as well.
Is it a two-horse race for you?
I completely disagree. Yeah, look, it's a two-horse race for the league lead this year. I think everybody will resign to that. They're already clearing away from the rest of the pack, other than obviously the Catalans games, which both of them will be disappointed with. Obviously, both of them were close games as well. It wasn't like it was a walk away and Catalans have got the better of people at the home ground. It is going to finish with those two at 1-2. I think we expect that. That could mean, that does mean that they would face each other in the playoffs, and that would be an interesting game to watch, and obviously something that the rest of the league can grasp onto. But it does also mean that one of them has to go through a final eliminator process, which means that obviously one of them has to get over that little hiccup of not being able to produce at the last minute, which is something obviously both teams have had over the last couple of years. I think Warrington will be more determined this year than ever before. I think they've got a better team than they've ever had. So if they were ever going to do it, in my opinion, it would be this year. We said that knowing that Widup's going to be coming next year, and it could be completely rewritten and, this will be the year that they're going to do it. But I do think this year is important for Warrington. I think with everything that's happened over the last few years and the finals that they've lost, both in the Cup and in the Super League, it's important that they get something on the board. I still don't think it's a two-horse race. I think one of them will slip up. I think somebody will be in the final with them. I couldn't tell you which ones at this point. I think St Helens will get there. We reluctantly want to admit that St Helens are probably too good for everybody else. Who's with them? I honestly couldn't tell you. At this point, I hope that it's Wigan. I don't think it will be. I think Wigan will surprise a few people and get into the playoffs, but I don't think they'll have that edge in big moments to get over the line. So I'll be looking at maybe Castleford to get back into the grand final. Maybe even Catalans to make it first appearance after the Challenge Cup victory last year. But I don't think this will be the grand final. I think one of them will make it, one of them won't.
Well, you mentioned Castleford and Catalans, obviously. I mean, those are the two teams that I've predicted I think will be third and fourth. I think Castleford's resilience the other night against Wigan, especially in the light of their injury problems at the minute, shows how strong they are as a group, and they'll only improve once they get players back. Catalans as well, I think, will come good. Their home form's been pretty bang on almost this year so far, and I reckon they'll pick up a few more away victories as well, and I reckon they'll keep that home form going. So I reckon they could definitely be up there. They've got the squad for it now as well. I think they've done really well bringing in the likes of Tompkins and McIllorum. I think those guys have really added to their side, and I think playing Gigo in the halves as well is another. It was a ballsy move, I think, from McNamara, but I think it was a good one. I think he's combining well with Smith as well. I think that one last place in that top five, that's the one that's going to be really up for grabs. I think that could go to a number of clubs. I think for me, I think Salford are a good outside bet. I think Hastings and Louis in the halves are. I think I'd probably go as far as saying they are the best halves combination in the league. I think there's a few that push them close, but I think they're definitely up there. It's just a case of whether or not the rest of the side can replicate those same efforts and that same quality.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with you in terms of Hastings and Louis. I think the problem for Salford will be when they come up against teams that can dominate that middle a little bit more. So you're talking about your big forwards. You're talking about your Wigan pack, your Warrington pack, your Catalans pack. The guys that can dominate the middle. Obviously, I know that Salford had that massive result away at Catalan, and nobody expected it to happen. And obviously, that sort of scuppered the idea of Catalan's perfect home form. But if Catalan's got into a game like that again and could dominate that middle, you take Hastings and Louis out of the game somewhat. And if you can do that against Salford, they're automatically going to struggle to win games. And that, I think that'll be the hiccup when it comes to making the top 5. I think they'll push close, but I think they'll just struggle. In many ways, you can look at Hull in the sense that they've got the big pack, so they can dominate the middles, but then they've still got the creative players out the back. Max Leeds having a brilliant season. He's already got 10 try assists to his name. So like, if you can come up and with Kelly coming back into the fold now, them two back together, they could start to create some havoc. When Jake Connor's fit again, that's obviously going to be a problem for different teams. So Horsey are definitely a good outside bet as well. But again, I don't know, there's something about those two teams that makes me feel like they're not going to quite be there. Same with Wakefield. I think Wakefield look good. They've got my favourite player in the league, in Jacob Miller. I think he's an incredible talent. I love watching him play rugby, but I still don't think they're going to be quite there, even with Brough, who's dominating the play a bit more, and we've seen in previous years from Wakefield. You could say the same about Wigan. I keep bringing it up, but again, Wigan could fall short because they've not got that quality at 7 that could lead them around the park in key areas. So, like I said, there's a few teams running for it. If I had to put my neck on the line, I would. My heart says Wigan, my head probably says Wakefield.
Yeah, well, I even think up until Castleford came back against Wigan, I was saying that I think they could possibly join the mix of teams that would be fighting for the 3 places behind Saints and Warrington. But I think it's just the rest of the league, they're all beating each other, whereas obviously apart from Saints and Warrington slip up in France, they are the standout teams. And I think at the moment, obviously, what, a third of the way through the season, there's such a long way to go, but it's really hard to see anybody dislodging them 2 out of the top 2, and I feel below that, I disagree. I actually think Wakefield will be one of the teams that get in the top 5. Obviously, they've had like setbacks, Tom Johnston, Bill Tupou now out, but I feel like they are, along with Castleford, that they would be my tip to definitely get in the top 5. I don't necessarily think Catalans will.
You know?
No, I think they're obviously they're great at home, and it's the same every season, but away from home, and there's been some very just bizarre results. Like, obviously they got beat 46-0 at home to Salford, but went to Wigan, and I thought, should be a close game. And the same Wigan team that have kind of collapsed against Castleford, I mean, kept Catalan scoreless, which is it's been a strange season. I don't think it's very often you could say that even possibly you can't really count Leeds out of it if they go on a bit of a run. We talked about their next 5 games, next 4 league games. If they win all them, they're back in it. It's just it's a very it's an up in the air season. I think behind Saints and Warrington, I think it's anybody's guess, and I think it's exciting. It's
a season where anybody can be anybody. We always compare the Super League to the NRL, and everyone's like, the NRL you can go from finishing 3rd to finishing 12th, or etc. etc. But we've had a conversation about it before. The NRL teams that win the NRL, that win the Premiership, tend to be the same teams in circulation, other than maybe 1 or 2 here or there. And I think that's what we're starting to find in Super League now. Obviously, you've still got the teams that are winning it consistently, i.e. Wigan, Leeds, Saints, going back a few years. But in terms of the rest of the league, between 3rd and 10th, anything can happen. Teams are beating teams, and like Wigan beat Salford, and then Salford went to Catalan and battered Catalans, and then Catalans got hosted St Helens and beat St Helens, and St Helens beat Wigan, and so what's happening? Like, anybody can beat anybody, and like you say, somebody gets on a 5-game win streak, bit of rhythm, playing good rugby with good structures, and keep fit. Anybody can make that top 5.
I think it will all come down to form at the end of the day, which is a bit of an obvious statement to make, but I think you mentioned earlier, Sean, about that last 10-15 games being a vital part of the season, in that teams can, it's so easy, I think, for teams to drop off or pick up good form, And I think those last 10-15 games will be really telling as to who makes, that top 5 up. I know my opinion differs to yours, but I think Warrington and Saints will be the top 2 still by the end of the season. Whether that'll happen through to the grand final, I'm not sure, but I think those other 3 places will be up for grabs right until the last day even.
Right, lads, on the game itself, it promises to be the game of the season so far. You've got the 2 man are still favourites leading the early standings, Blake Austin, James Roby. Which one of them 2 do you see having the greatest impact on the game, and which way do you see the game going?
Obviously, with the issues that St Helens have in terms of halves options, I'm not sure if Ferge will be back in time for the game. I think if Richardson plays for Saints, it's going to be a lot easier for Warrington to dominate the midfield area, or even come out the back. Obviously, with players like Ben Marcelo coming out on the second row, and sometimes even goes out to centre and cuts in, which will cause problems defensively for St Helens. I can't see Richardson having that much of an effect on the game, which means that Roby might not be able to affect the game in the same way, which would leave the doors off for Warrington. Having said that, St Helens are at home, and they always play a lot better at home in front of their own fans, and Roby always thrives in those conditions. So obviously it is going to be between those 2 for me. Whoever plays the better, their side wins for me. I think James Roby, we know what he's about. I still think he'll win Man of Steel. Personally, I think he's too consistent over a long period of time. But Warrington have proved that they've got that little bit of flow, that little bit extra going forward, and it might prove vital in that final third.
I think all the attention will be on Blake Austin, to be honest. I think with Roby, we've got used to him now, and as harsh as that sounds, we know what he's about, we know what he can do. He's proven before that in games like this he will step up, and he's no problem doing that. Like you said, he's so consistent that it's almost a given now that James Roby will have a good game. But I think Austin, as much as he's been superb so far, scored, I think it's up to 9 tries now already. Yeah. As much as he's done that so far, I think it's his biggest test yet. And I think this will be the game where it could even make or break him as a player this season for Warrington. If he steps up well in this game and leads them to a win, then that's huge. Not just for Warrington in their season, but for Austin personally. I think that'll fill him with so much confidence.
Knowing that he can do it in the big games.
Exactly, yeah. That's the big difference. I mean, he's done it against a couple of the, no disrespect, but some of the smaller sides so far this season and had a massive impact. But can he really do it against who they've pitted themselves as the 2 best teams in the competition at the minute? Can he do it against St Helens? And I think that's the big test for him. But I reckon he can. I think Warrington will win this game. I think, like Sean mentioned, I think Lomax should be back. He was ill last week. I don't think Fires is going to play. So I think it'll be a game dominated by the half-backs and by the spine of each side, and I think Warrington will come out on top.
Very bold prediction there. Are you going with that?
I'm going to very reluctantly go for St Helens. I think they'll have a little bit too much on the net.
Yeah, I've got to say I fancy Saints. I don't know, I always feel like with Saints and Warrington, whoever's won the last one, the other team always seems to win the next one. I don't know whether, obviously some Saints and Warrington fans will probably tell me that's not true.
Yeah.
But obviously with Warrington winning the semi-final last year, I just think Saints will be bang up for it, and I can see them edging it, but potentially Golden Point.
I'd love a Golden Point.
That's where Danny Richardson would come in handy.
Yeah, it would come in handy without doubt.
Danny Richardson to win it.
Yeah, I'll give you a special mention. He's definitely watching this. Right, guys. Sorry, let us know your score predictions. What do you reckon? Is it a 2-horse race? And who out of the teams below Warrington Saints do you think could get up there, could challenge them, could potentially spoil what seems like the nailed-on grand final at the moment, according to Jack? But we'll find out. Yeah. Let us know in the comments and leave your score predictions for the game.
Watch every game of the NRL, plus the grand final and state of origin from anywhere outside Australia, New Zealand or the Pacific Islands. Go to watchnrl.com and take the footy with you.